Hello, my soul brothers and soul sisters. I am Ron Smith, and this is the Dr. Ron Smith Investigate Show, where we separate the real from fake, the fact from fiction, and give you the winner's edge. And sometimes we're able to turn your water into wine. We are in season 3, and this is episode 3. And last week, I talked about mindset. And this week, we're going to talk about wealth building 101. And basically, we're going to start the beginning. And basically, this is for the people who's catching up. They missed season 1, season 2. And we're talking about the wealth building and basically what you need to do. But at all times, I think if you are fundamentally sound in any career, you are one of the things that you can build on. And I'm going to be talking about some things that you need to get in order, some things that might sound redundant to some and might be new to others. So I never want to assume that you know, because when you assume, they make a blank out of blank. So basically, when I talk, I have building blocks. And one of the things that I want you to understand is that there is no magic promises or no magic formula. The only magic formula is what Einstein said was the eighth wonders of the world, which is compound interest. Now, understanding what that is that compound interest can work for you and it can work against you. And we're going to be discussing a little more in detail about that later in the show. But first of all, your mindset is that the things that you do, the habits that you form determines your worldview. And, I discussed earlier where, the poor has a mindset, the middle class has a mindset, and the rich has a mindset. And basically, I'm going to just generalize that if all you do is work and pay bills, then you will always have that mindset and you would go no further than working and pay bills. And if you work and pay bills and just to accumulate things, then you will only have certain mindset. Now, the rich, what their mindset is that for when they see a opportunity or dollar of income of whether they earn or created, they want that income to increase and to multiply and to have babies. And that's the mindset that I want you to start having, is that basically you have a vision for yourself of how you are not only work for money, but having your money work for you. So it takes a mindset and determination. And the thing about it is that I use this acronym, what they call SMART, which means that it has to be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and has to be time-based. And basically, specific is that you, whatever career that you have, that basically you have a certain amount of income. And basically, you have a certain amount of expense. Now, whether you use the 70-20-10 method or 70-10-10-10 method as far as paying your income to your expense ratio, which maybe I go into that at a different time. But you have a short-term expense, you have mid-term, and then you have your long-term that you always have to keep in mind. So with that in mind, it has to be measurable, which means basically, that unfortunately, you're not like the United States government that have a endless supply of money, and all you have to do is print money. Your income is measurable, and there are certain expenses that you have to take care of. Your living expense. Whether it is your housing, transportation, your food, et cetera, et cetera. And there's other things that basically you can prioritize. And your goal has to be attainable, which means that basically you don't have Bill Gates' income. Therefore, you have to only have your plans around about what you are able to do at this specific time, whether that is a monthly budget or whether that's a yearly budget. You only have certain amount of things that when you make your plan, it has to be able to be attainable, that make it sure that it's, which is the next one, realistic. You have to understand what you can do and what you can't do. And that is goes next to the one is time sensitive, which means that basically you have to create your plan. Therefore, I'm going to do this within the next quarter. I'm going to do this within the next 6 months, or I have a annual plan. One of the things that I would just want to just as a sidebar, say that basically I wanted to buy a house in 2025. Now is the time that basically I should be planning for how I can make sure that it's attainable, which means that basically there's some debt issues that I need to either address, whether I can eliminate those things within the next 6 months, so I can prepare myself for the 2025 major purchase. And there's two ways that you could do that. One way is what they call the snowball method, is the smaller bills you want to, and ones with the lower interest rate, you want to eliminate those first. And if I can eliminate those, then I could go to what they call the avalanche, which means I go to the higher, the larger bills. And we're not talking about mortgage, or we're not talking about a car payment, but some other credit card debts and some of the other small loans that we have hanging out there. Those are things that I want to eliminate those things. So, which brings me to, we need to identify goals and have a game plan. So basically, I just gave you a game plan, which means that basically, if I'm planning on purchasing a home, or let's say right now I'm renting, or I'm staying at home and I need to purchase a car, that could be your plan. So it all depends on, where your income level is and where you are in life. If you're beginning your career, it's totally different if you're in the middle or in the end of your career. So you need to make sure you have your SMART goal in mind. The next thing is budgeting. And I'm probably going to be repeating myself over and over on some of these key issues, because it's very important that you create a budget. And basically, as I mentioned, your budget is actually matching your income and expenses. I mentioned the 70-20-10, which is 70% of your income will go towards your housing, your car, your food, all those essential things that you must have in order to, to actually live. 20% goes to reducing your debt and saving. And I say 10% is for, I'll call your charitable contribution, donation, or in my case, I tie to my church. Now, there one of the best formulas that I've seen is 70, 10, 10, 10, which in me 7% of those total essentials, and 10% savings, 10% debt reduction, as well as 10% as budgeting. Now, whatever formula that actually works for you is one that you need to have a plan, and basically you need to stick to it, which means basically you have to identify your income, you have identified your expenses and how you are going to prioritize those things. And at the same time, you need to look at the things that you call your assets and things of your liabilities, and make sure those things are being balanced. The next thing you need to do, and we're talking about building wealth 101, is building a emergency fund. And I really don't like to use that term, but it's throughout the industry, people talks about emergency fund. I like to call it, a discretionary fund, which means basically a fund that you have within that, 70, 10, 10, 10. It could be that saving part of it. that you have to give you peace of mind. One of the things that happened to me, even just this past week, is that I needed a new battery for my vehicle. Thank God it wasn't nothing more expensive than that, because my state inspection was due. So I wanted to take care of that, as something was going on with my ignition, I thought. But the $200 came from my I call my discretionary fund, money that I had put aside, so just in case something happened. And if you own a vehicle, you're gonna need tires. God forbid that you have anything goes wrong with your engine or your transmission, because those are major expenses. But those are some of the things that you want to have in mind. And if you own a house, there's always something that you need to do. We live in Virginia Beach right now, and God forbid if we have a major storm that basically rips some of your shingles off or your siding off. And the reason why I mention that is that I have learned that there are certain expenses that you don't want to ask your insurance company to pay for. And that might be another subject that I need to address, because basically once you start using your deductible and your insurance, after 2 or 3 uses of that, basically they either raise your deduction or deductible or your premium, or they actually kick you out of your insurance. So one of the things that I am saying to you is that is the fund to basically, do the mini repair on your home. Get a guy to actually do your replace your shingle or replace the siding, and not do it as from part of the insurance. And I know you said that basically I'm paying money and I'm using it, but from my past experience, after 2 major insurance claims, I was dropped by a very prominent insurance company. And as national disasters are happening in other parts of the country, we are experiencing our own insurance being increased. So, and think about it. If you just have to go to the ER for something that's not really life-threatening, those are medical bills that, that's anything under $1,000. I think there's, you can probably consider that's not a major medical bill. Trust me, because those things can actually explode on you. So building a discretionary fund, i.e. emergency fund, comes in handy. And that's one of the things that basically you want to make sure you do. And one of the best systems that I have seen in place is that putting some of your larger bill on auto pay, which means that basically you don't want to get behind in certain aspect. Whether it's your mortgage or rent, make sure you put that on auto pay, your car payment on auto pay. And so just to wrap up in the first part of this, we're talking about Wealth Building 101. And we're talking about identifying your goals and having a game plan, budgeting your income and sticking to it, building a discretionary fund or emergency fund, and putting some of your large bills on auto pay. And the whole thing is that you have to be in control of your finances. And the only way you can actually do that is having a plan. So we're going to take a brief segment, a brief break, and then we're going to continue with Wealth Building 101. We're back, and we're talking about Wealth Building 101. I am Ron Smith, and this is the Dr. Ron Smith Investigate Show, and we are in season 3, and this has happened to be episode 3, and we're talking about building wealth. And as I mentioned, in the first half, is that fundamentally, if you're fundamentally sound, you will actually be ahead of most of the people that you know. And the thing about it is that having a plan and actually executing, you have to be able to stick to it. And I want to give a shout out to my good friend Paulette Johnson, who's in Dallas, Texas. She is giving me a ride on, which making sure having a plan. And the best way to start is actually have a what I call a rich mindset, which means basically when you, as you creating your plan, how do you make your money work for you instead of having to work for money? And I start off with using the acronym or SMART, being specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time sensitive. And we're talking about identifying goals, creating a game plan, creating a budget and sticking to it. And I gave you 2 examples of things that you do. Basically, I've heard of the 70, 20, 10. The best one I really can create, because you can actually visualize it better. 70, 10, 10, 10. Basically, 70% of your income of things that are vital to life, 10% of savings, 10% of debt reduction, and 10% actually I call it tithing, making charitable donation, et cetera, et cetera. And building I call it the discretionary fund. Some people call it emergency fund, because that would give you peace of mind, because things happen. I know the other slogan, S happened, but things don't happen. And then I give you an example of that. Basically, I had to put a battery into my vehicle, which was not planned, but I had enough money in my discretionary fund that I didn't have to go over into the pot to disrupt my budget. And sometimes you're going to find that there are budget busters. If you had to do a transmission or get a motor for your vehicle because you don't want a car payment, that could throw off your other budget. And the thing about it, if you have everything systematically designed, you can move some things up or move some things over so that they actually can fit. And the thing about it is, if you have a written plan, it's better than trying to keep it all in your head. And, I guess I am somewhat tactical. It's what I actually need to see the pen and paper. I know a lot of people do it on their phone. There's a lot of apps that you can use for budget planning, and you can do it on your laptop, et cetera, et cetera. But to me, I actually put the pen to paper. It works so much better for me when I do it that way. And doing the auto pay keeps me on time, especially with those major expenses. And the next thing I want to talk about as far as building wealth 101 is debt. Now, I know I grew up in a household where, where most of the time my mother wanted to pay things off. She wanted to buy things in cash. And she didn't want to owe anyone anything. But you got to realize that that was at least 30, 40, 50 years ago, when you can actually do certain things due to inflation and certain other aspect of things cost more now. When my mother was my age, I think gas was under $2 per gallon. And I just give you just that for instance. And now you know that if you get anything under $3, like right now, I think the best you can get is $2.84 right now. and we don't know how long that's going to last. So let's talk about debt, and I call it the good, the bad, and the ugly, because there is a difference. Good debt is assets building or investment building debt. A mortgage, in my opinion, is a good debt. First of all, since you're going to have to live somewhere, you can control that by even having a 15-year mortgage or a 30 years mortgage. And right now, I think there's petitioning to be even a 50-year mortgage, but that's neither here nor there. But my point is, you know that it's a set amount each month. Now, I, being candid, I have rental property. And one thing about that is that I can increase rent almost every year if that's one of the strategies that me and my team decide to do. So renting is not it's not a flat line as a mortgage note. And basically, if you there's some write-offs, some interest payments, and some other things that you could do with a home that you can't do with rent. So a mortgage would be a better situation. And there's some things that I will discuss later, basically how you can actually even take advantage of a mortgage note by allowing somebody else to pay your mortgage. That's another one of those things that we're going to talk about in depth later. Now, one of the things over my time, I used to think everybody should have a college education. As I get older, I realize that that's not necessarily true anymore. And it's not necessary that everybody should go to college. But higher education can be an investment if you understand what it is and what it can't do. And basically, when you have that mindset that I talked about in the beginning, determination, and have a vision for what that can do for you. You can be a welder that can make $60,000, $80,000, $100,000. Now, let's think of it. I'm just going to basically, you could do that and go to a community college or a trade school. If you are underground, underwater welder, which means basically you have to be scuba qualified, et cetera, you could make top six figures doing that. Matter of fact, I met a man who goes around the world. Matter of fact, he told me he was in Japan, and he stays there about 3 or 4 months, training other people how to do the underwater welding. And he makes, I think he was telling me then he was making $250,000 just for the training. So, and that doesn't require a college education, but he is a true professional. That basically, those are there are other examples that you can achieve 6 figures or more without a 4-year degree. And one of the things that you should be able to consider. And there's I can give you more and more examples of that, but my point is, a mortgage and higher education, and I should say a trade or trade school or community college, is an investment, and that is a good debt. Now let's move on to the bad. The bad is a car payment. One of the things that I learned real quick was basically you get in that new car, you could do a U-turn out of the parking lot and go back into the dealership. The value just went down. That is a bad debt. Even though you're going to need the debt for, transportation, you need it for going to work, you need to do it for, shopping, et cetera, et cetera. But there's ways that don't consider that, whether it's a Lexus or Mercedes or whatever your Acura, whatever it was, when you sit down, you're behind in that vehicle. and you took off in it before the ink get wet on the contract, it has decreased in value. So there's different ways that actually, there's ways that you can negotiate the value of that car. There are certain days that you can purchase the car that's better than others. There is a difference between getting a money from a bank than a credit union. So there are so many things that you can negotiate to make that purchase better. But it's still considered, because it don't increase in value, I consider that to be a bad debt. Okay, credit cards. It's easily accessible to your way of life, and basically, if you use that correctly and make sure you pay it off before the installment date on that, and you can actually control how you actually spend, and then you won't be paying the higher interest rate. At the same time, the credit card utilization is one of the things that I've learned that nobody told me about, is that if I had a $10,000 limit, I should not go over $3,000. And actually, $2,500 is probably the correct way to use that credit utilization, because all these things reflect on your credit score, which hopefully I have time to talk about that. I'm going to share a few minutes of talking about that. Ugly. Payday loans, high interest rate loans, all the things that happens in certain community for the reason that we are unbankable or unbanked. And you got to watch out for these little fees. ATM fee here, $3 or $4 here, $5 here, a late payment here. All those things start adding up quick, and they are adding up real fast now. If you take a look, if you got credit cards, take a look at your interest rate and how this time last year compared to where we are right now. I'm quite sure it went up at least 6%, if not higher. And you got to be very cognizant of that. Okay, I'm going to have to start wrapping things up here because my time is winding down. But here are 5 principles of financial literacy. Budgeting, improving your credit score, saving, borrowing, and repaying your debt, and investing. And basically, I'm budgeting. I'm going to sound redundant, but there's different ways you can do it. Remember, I talked about the 70, 20, 30, or the 70, 10, 10, 10. And there's, many ways that you can, put a slice of cake, but you have to make sure that you are consistent and make sure that it's a habit. And there's some ways that basically you put some of the items on auto pay that basically you can set it and kind of forget it. But keep a track to make sure that those dates meet the same dates that these company requires that you do. And I mentioned credit score. One of the things you need to do as soon as possible is get all 3 of your credit reports from Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. And you can call them directly, and they will give you all 3 of them, because you want to actually look at all 3 of them at the same time. Believe it or not, some may have different information on each different ones. And I'm going to start within the next couple of weeks of how to actually start addressing to see what's on your credit score. And because that's important, especially remember I said if you had a vision that you want to buy or purchase a house or a car, it all depends on where you are. Now, that is Wealth Building 101. And we're just getting started because there's more information that I want to give you. But right now, I'm gonna pump my brakes and I'm gonna slow down because I really appreciate your time. The time is one of those things that you can't save. You got to spend it, and basically, I just like to share it with you. So until we meet again, my time is up, and I thank you for yours.